You're listening to Happy Healthy Hormones with Dr. Chris. Are you tired of the short-term patch to your health problems? Is avoiding medications and surgeries important to you? If you answered yes, then your prayers have been answered. Dr. Chris has been helping people transform their health for over a decade. He's a world-renowned health expert who specializes in holistic health. He's a professional speaker, chiropractor, and international best-selling author. It's his mission to help you reach your full God-given potential through holistic health and healing. Get ready to be inspired and transformed. Here's your host, Dr. Chris.
Welcome everyone to the show where disease takes a dive and people come to thrive. And today we got someone really special. We've got Dr. Debi Silber, and she is the president and CEO of Debi Silber Companies. She is the founder of the PBT Institute, which we're going to talk about here, what that is here in a second. But she's amazing. She is a Amazon #1 best-selling author of The Unshakable Woman, 4 Steps to Rebuilding Your Body, Mind, and Life After a Life Crisis. You know, she's been featured on many platforms and many influencers, from being recommended by Brian Tracy, Marshall Goldsmith, Jack Canfield, and many more. She's contributed to Fox, CBS, The Dr. Oz Show, TedX, The Huffington Post, Shape. So, I mean, she's just been all over the place. I could keep going on and on. But after researching and conducting a PhD study on women, she found about the experience of betrayal from those experiences and her own experiences, and that process, coupled with 27 years of health, mindset, and personal development training and coaching, enabled her to create this multi-pronged approach to helping women physically, mentally, emotionally, psychologically, and spiritually from the trauma of betrayal. And so, men, this is not just for women. These same principles apply to men and how we also undertake and deal with and cope with and overcome betrayal. So I want you to make sure you're listening up as well. So Dr. Debi is amazing. So let's go ahead and get started with this podcast today. All right, everyone. So welcome to another episode. Today we have the privilege of having Dr. Debi Silber. So she is amazing. She's doing a lot of cool things with just helping people transform their lives, especially when it comes to their state of mind. And that spiritual healing is so important to any journey we have in our lives. So, Dr. Debi, I appreciate you having us having you on today, man. It's great. How you doing?
Thank you. Looking forward to our conversation.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, Dr. Debi, now, do you like to go by Dr. Debi, Dr. Silber? What do you prefer?
Debi is fine.
Perfect. So, Debi, let's take a look at some things here, because I really am interested in your story. You know, with your background and what you're doing with betrayal and helping people heal from that. What was your story of betrayal, and what kind of where did you come from, and what brought you to where you are now?
Yeah, you don't study something like betrayal unless you have to. And unfortunately, I had a really bad betrayal experience with my family. And then, you know, the way the universe works, you don't learn the lesson you're meant to learn. You get another opportunity. So that was in the form of my husband. And it catapulted me into this PhD program in transpersonal psychology, you know, the psychology of transformation and human potential. I couldn't understand, you know, how the mind works, why we do what we do, and how I could heal. But I was transforming. He was too. I wanted to study it further. So while I was there, of course, I had to do a study. And so I studied how women experience betrayal, what holds them back, what helps them heal. And I remember going into that study saying, wow, there are the stages of grief. If there could be the stages of betrayal, then we could know, okay, here we are, but hang on, because this next stage is coming. And sure enough, that was just one of the 3 discoveries that were made.
That's pretty amazing. And I mean, I feel like that's such maybe a deep topic. And so I know we probably don't have nearly enough time today to do it justice, but I really want to give people an understanding of what's going on and what really this post-betrayal transformation, because you've developed the what they call PBT Institute, right, which stands for Post-Betrayal Transformation for our listeners. So how did you transform into what you're doing now? And what are some of those, what's that study that you did? It sounds really amazing. I'm sure people want to know more about that. Some of the discoveries you happened to come across, and maybe that can help you guide into those 5 stages as well.
Sure. Well, we made three discoveries. The first one was that there's a collection of symptoms so common to betrayal, it's become known as post-betrayal syndrome. And these are physical, mental, and emotional symptoms. So I have a quiz right on the site to see to what level are you still struggling. Because people find, wow, that unhealed betrayal is holding them back in relationships, in health, in business, all over. Mm-hmm. So that was one thing. The second one was I originally was studying something called post-traumatic growth, which, a lot of people know. And that's sort of the upside of trauma, but it's general, how that trauma led to a new awareness, perspective, insight that you didn't have before it happened. But healing from betrayal is so different than healing from other types of crises. I had been through death of a loved one, disease, but I felt it was different. I didn't want to assume it. So I brought it back out to my study participants, and sure enough, they said, yes, it's vastly different because of how intentional it is. So post-traumatic growth didn't seem to be a fit. So we coined a new term, post-betrayal transformation, because you also have to rebuild every aspect of the self that was so totally destroyed. Think about it. You're never betrayed by someone you don't know. It's by the people you're closest to. So it absolutely upends your world. So that was the second thing. And the third was that we saw that you can stay stuck for years, decades, a lifetime. But if you're going to heal, and to transform, you will go through 5 now proven and predictable stages. And what's even more exciting is now we know what happens physically, mentally, emotionally at every stage and what it takes to move from one stage to the next.
That's interesting. So what do those 5 different stages look like? Mm-hmm. And is it the same for everybody? Do they follow the same stages, or do people jump around, or is it pretty it's a pretty consistent pattern that people follow?
Oh, it's consistent. There are, you could, if you're not ready to move to a stage, you may sort of dabble in it and fall back. But when you consistently move, you're moving in this direction. There were these sub themes that really had you could go to one and another and then come back, and the order wasn't as important, but these 5 stages were always in this order. And the first one it's like a setup stage. No blame, no judgment. This is what I saw with everybody, me included. If you imagine 4, let's say, legs of a table, the 4 being mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual, what I saw with everybody was a real heavy lean on the physical and the mental, and really neglecting the emotional and the spiritual. So picture a table with only 2 legs. Easy for that table to topple over. We're the same way. But
Absolutely.
Also, but when we're only focused on the physical and the mental, it's like we're one big to-do list, and our body's taking us around to get it done. We've also shut down our intuition, when we're in that stage. So that was sort of the setup. And then there's stage 2. This is by far the scariest stage. Here's where we're blindsided. And there's a breakdown of the body, of the mind, of the worldview. Stress response is ignited. So now we're headed for all kinds of symptoms, illnesses, conditions. Our mind, we can't wrap our head around this, because the people we trusted the most just absolutely blew our minds. We never saw this coming. That shock, we just can't make sense out of it.
No, not to interrupt you, but I want to just our viewers have an idea too, and more clarity. Is what are some examples of some of the more common betrayals that you see, or maybe even some of the people don't even think about, and they're going through life really being affected from this betrayal, but they don't even look at or identify it as a betrayal?
Absolutely. Well, it's really, I define it as the breaking of a spoken or unspoken rule. And the more you trusted and you were dependent upon the person, the bigger the betrayal. So like a child who is totally dependent on a parent does something awful, is going to have a bigger impact than, let's say, a coworker taking credit for your idea, right? Still a betrayal, but it's that breaking of the spoken or unspoken rule. We had an agreement, right? I was going to show up today and we were going to speak. If I didn't, you wouldn't be devastated.
Well, hey, you're pretty amazing. I think I would be a little devastated, but I get what you're saying. Different levels.
So it really, there are all different kinds of levels. But what happens is, and what I see so consistently is, people feel, well, time will fix it, or a new relationship will fix it. But what happens is, unless this is unearthed and unpacked, oh no, it'll get a little bit better, but it will keep following you. And we could have workplace betrayals. We could have your best friend, oh, your secret's safe with me, and then you see it on Facebook. It could be siblings, like, we're going to take care of mom and dad one day, and then they don't. Of course, there's, a couple, we're going to be faithful, and then they're not. So it has so many faces. You could feel betrayed by a coach, a teacher, a mentor, just they take you under their wing, you're safe with me, and then you're not. I have a lot of people, and it's interesting, in the health arena, who feel they've been betrayed by conventional medicine, or even betrayed by their own body. So it has so many faces.
That's great insight there. So now you're talking about, you were number two. Yeah, getting to two. Okay.
And there's a breakdown of the worldview too. The worldview is your mental model, how you view the world. So now, if the people closest to you, just showed you, oh no, what you thought was real and true is not, your whole view of the world is shattered. So here's where the bottom drops out under you, and a new bottom hasn't been formed yet. So this is terrifying. And here's where there's shock, there's overwhelm, there's confusion. One of my participants said, you know what, Debbie, it feels like every negative physical emotion you can have while you're losing your child in a crowd. It's like that. Yeah, it's
heavy. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And then there's stage 3. And stage 3, now think about it. If you were walking down the street and the bottom were to bottom out on you, you would do whatever you could to grab hold of anything to stay safe and stay alive. That's stage 3. Survival instincts emerge. This is a very practical stage. How will I survive this experience? Where do I live? What do I do? Who can I trust? Who do I speak with? Stress response, is just highly engaged again. And we're just breaking down the body with this. Very practical. Here's what I see. This is the stage we can get stuck in for life. Because we're all about survival. And the small self, the ego, gets lots of benefits in this space. You get to be right. You have someone to blame. You have your story. You don't have to do the hard work of, do I trust you? Do I trust you? Oh, forget it. I won't trust anybody. You don't have to, there are so many, you could justify inaction. Oh, I can't do that. Look what I've been through, right? There are lots of benefits here. If you're willing, and that's a big part of it, we have all kinds of experiential exercises that help people move to the next stage. But if you're willing to, you can move into the 4th stage, and this is finding and adjusting to your new normal. Your old normal doesn't exist anymore. It's not an option.
Cool.
So
let me ask you a question, this on that number 3. So do you find that people, they're grabbing for anything? They're in that position. Is this a vulnerable place because they can grab the wrong things in their life? They're grabbing on the wrong people. They're trying to attach themselves to these things that don't have strong foundations, and then it just keeps pulling them down, or maybe even pulling them down further?
Oh, absolutely. Because here's where they say, oh my gosh, I just need to get out of this experience. Let me just, this new relationship will help. Oh, no, it won't. Because unless you, have made sense and made meaning out of your experience and learned all the lessons you were supposed to learn, there's a hole within that there is no outside anybody, anything that could ever fill that. Here's where, that work needs to be done, or it will just keep following you. But you're absolutely right. The challenge also in this space is it gets really familiar and really comfortable, and then we start planting roots there, and then we start thinking we belong there. Because we say, well, if that person who supposedly loved me the most did this, I must not be worthy. I must not be valuable. I must not be lovable. And we start believing that. And then we're in deep trouble because now, and then we make friends in this place, and then we, work from this space, and this is just a whole big lack magnet right here.
We're believing the lie. We're being fed. Yeah, absolutely.
That's it. So if you're willing to, and I'll talk about the women who did not heal in my study, because there were 3 things I saw, but if you're willing to, you move into this finding and adjusting to a new normal. And it's like if you've ever moved to a new house, a condo, apartment, office, whatever. It's not cozy and familiar yet, but it's going to be okay. And that's the space where, your body may not be healing just yet, but at least you're not breaking it down the way you were, in stage 3. You're making this new space, a new place okay. And when you're really good with it and you're really like, okay, I got this and this is okay, you slowly move into the fifth most beautiful stage, and this is healing, rebirth, and a new worldview. Your body starts to heal. You didn't have the bandwidth for any self-care, self-love. You were just all about survival. So here's where, you're not breaking down your body, right? And you have the bandwidth for to eat healthier, to exercise, things like that. Your mind, you have a whole new set of beliefs now based on what you've been through. And your worldview is very different based on your experience. And that table where we were only strengthening the two legs, the mental and the physical, now we are solidly grounded with the emotional and the spiritual too.
That's huge. Just creating that room in your life to be able to accept what the universe is now giving you and trying to give you, and then being able to take that to the next level, huh?
That's it. And I'll tell you that there are, the women who do the work to heal all those aspects of the self that were just demolished in the betrayal, are just the strongest women I've ever known, because they've taken that experience. Yes, they've mourned the loss, they've healed, they've gone through all of that, but they've rebuilt their self-esteem, their self-worth, their feelings of abandonment, rejection. They've rebuilt trust. These things are huge.
Absolutely.
And when they've done something good with it, that's post-betrayal transformation. And I have there's the program that walks you through the stages now that we know what they are.
Yeah.
And then 2 certifications on the other end to be a certified PBT, post-betrayal transformation support group host and practitioner. Because what's so exciting is when you're healing, when you unpack all this and you heal from it, you've been lugging around for, it could be decades, you're so excited that you want to teach it. And we found that, first of all, those support groups, we need it the most, and we're the least likely to seek it when we've been betrayed because we're so embarrassed and ashamed. But also the women who are hosting these groups have such a healing benefit by just holding the space for these women going through it.
It's so powerful when you can relate to other people, know that you're not going through this storm alone. You have that support. It just allows you to open up. I was just at a workshop seminar just over the weekend, and it turned out to be, it was just going to be kind of a Q&A thing, but it turned into a healing environment because there were all these people that were willing to be vulnerable. One woman was able to share her story and get vulnerable and deep and real with that. And afterwards, so many people came around and came up to her, hugging her, saying thank you, because they were able to break past some limiting belief or have some breakthrough in their life just because they saw her, and it allowed them to see this new light. And you're right, that powerful group that setting is so powerful.
It is, and that's the benefit of the collective mind. And it's certainly not to sit and commiserate and keep you stuck. No. But unfortunately, something like betrayal puts you in a club you never wanted to be in. But you get it because there's such a fear of trust. Because think about it. It's like, who am I to trust? Somebody new. I trusted 150% the person who I thought had my back, my own family member, for my entire life. So there are things that are just so weird that if you haven't been through it, it's hard to understand. So the groups are powerful for sure. But I'll tell you, there were certain things that I saw consistently on why women didn't heal, and we talked about it a little bit, but really when they just either medicated or numbed or distracted or avoided, this is the kind of thing, as painful as it is, you have to feel it, you have to face it, and you have to heal it. If you don't, you just can't heal from it. Another thing was if they refused to accept, like they refused to accept their situation. They just hung on to it for dear life, and that was it. That's that stage 3, refusing to move to stage 4. Or if the betrayer had no consequences. Yeah, that was a big one.
So they felt like there was no justice for the betrayer.
And I'll tell you, the women who were the most physically ill were the ones where the betrayer had no consequences.
Just hanging on to that.
The body just could not handle that at all.
Well, it's so huge. I see this every day with our members, is if you can't open your soul and spirit and understanding that you can heal and create that space, or whether it be knowing that you can get well or not hanging on to that emotional baggage, so to speak, That's the biggest thing that I see keeps people from making the changes in their health. They could be eating all the right food, they could be exercising, they could be taking all the right supplements, whatever it might be, and they're like, why am I not getting better? Why am I not getting better? And it always comes down to that emotional side and healing. It's so key.
It's huge. And, I remember for years when I was working with people with weight loss and that sort of thing, if they can't imagine who they'd be without it, it's going nowhere. Like I remember there was a woman I was working with, and she had about 30 pounds to lose. And she was the funny one in her group. And she said, and I knew this was going to be an issue, and she didn't believe that she could be funny and sexy too. And she started losing. She was about 25 pounds down. And now I'm thinking, okay, here we go. And I remember saying to her, I go, what are you doing this weekend? She said, well, I'm going out with friends. Why? What are you wearing? I don't know. I said, wear something sexy and be funny too. I swear she came back the next week and she's like, oh, I did it. I could be sexy and funny. Like it was just, it was awesome. A belief that was just shattered.
That's awesome. That's so key. That's great. And so I love it when we have breakthroughs, right? And sometimes we can have that breakthrough in a single moment. It's really it can be seen as a long story, but when we only come down to it, it's just this moment, this decision we make, this 2-degree shift. And that's key. And I think what you're doing is awesome to help people do that as well. And so do you think that, what we're talking about isn't just applicable to women? I assume that these same stages apply to any human being that's alive. Is that right?
Absolutely. I only studied women, but it's interesting because already I got an email saying that they were looking to take my study too, which is just so wonderful because I don't know if men experience betrayal differently, different cultures experience it differently, different age groups, I don't know.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of the study, that now it can be replicated and they can test other populations. But on the quiz though, I have a lot of people taking the post-betrayal syndrome quiz, and lately it's been a lot of men. And it can be from a partner, but it could be a work betrayal, a family betrayal, but yeah.
Cool. Where can they take that quiz?
Yeah, that's just PBT, as in post-betrayal transformation, pbtinstitute.com/quiz.
Awesome. And so what do you think some easy action steps people could do right now that would help them in starting to get into dealing with that betrayal that they're dealing with?
Yeah, the first thing is you have to become aware of it. A lot of times I'm speaking about it and they're like, oh my God, I had no idea that it's this betrayal that's been holding me back. So, awareness is number one. And just a real helpful thing. And this sounds crazy, but I have people write, it's called a coherent narrative. And here's where you're finding the meaning from your experience. What's the benefit? And you're thinking, benefit? Are you kidding? Like, for example, here I am, at the PBT Institute with programs and, helping all these people. This never would have happened had it not been for my own betrayal, right?
Yeah.
So if you learn what's the benefit of your experience? Do you now know boundaries? Do you have you just up-leveled everybody you're willing to be with? What are the benefits that came from it? And what you're doing in this coherent narrative is you're making your story, you're taking it from being your life story to making it a pivotal chapter of your story.
That's awesome. Now, maybe you already went through this because we've been just hitting a ton of information right now, but did we hit number 5?
5 is healing,
rebirth,
and a new world.
Okay.
New worldview. So here's that place where you have that bandwidth for your own self-care, self-love, and you're healing, your body's healing, your mind's healing, and you are just so solidly grounded. It's interesting too. I really thought, you're not supposed to assume anything as a researcher, but I thought that there were women who I couldn't even imagine how they were able to get out of bed based on what they've been through. And I thought, well, they would grow the least because they have the most to overcome. I was dead wrong. Dead wrong. It was the ones who were willing, again, there's that word willing to just face it, not numb, not distract, not avoid, just, okay, let me dive in, dark night of the soul and all.
Yeah.
And those were the ones who are just the most unshakable women I've ever known.
So the women that had the biggest betrayals, the deepest hole to dig out of, so to speak, had some of the biggest transformations.
Absolutely.
It seems like that's in any human characteristic, right? Because we think about some of the most successful people in history, they didn't have the cush background. They were the people that came from nothing, or that had a huge trauma in their life, or that had so much to overcome, that had the biggest transformation. But they had, like you said, the willingness to want to do that.
And these are some of the most grateful people on the planet. Like, I mean, I have people now, they're grateful that they went through that messy divorce because, you know, now they are so filled with love and they found their soulmate, or they're grateful, let's say they lost their job because now they're doing the work they love, or they're grateful they got that disease because now they have this love and appreciation for life they never would have had. So it's only from those really dark places do you say, you know, screw this, I'm out of here.
Absolutely. Now, how can someone, I know we're just got a couple minutes left, but how can someone work with you, and what would that look like? Yeah,
you know, I mean, the best thing to do is find where you are by taking the quiz, but we actually have a few programs. One is the Betrayal to Breakthrough program, and this is just, I mean, it's like if you're a little kid and you're sitting in a track at an amusement park, this program, now that we know everything it takes to heal, will predictably move you on that track to the next stages. So that's what we do.
That's great.
And then from there, you're eligible for certifications. We have an inner circle, which is a very high level, working with me, if you could take it. Yeah. But I would say first step is take the quiz.
Yeah, absolutely. Take the quiz. That's awesome. And I want to just end with this. I always like to ask our guests this, because everyone's opinion and views are so different in this, but it's great. What is really reaching your full potential mean to you?
You know, it's doing what you're on this planet to do. You know, every single person has their own unique strength, gift, talent, calling, and it's our job to figure out what it is. And it is often through our biggest crisis that reveals our greatest gift. But once you figure out what that is, you have an obligation to share what you've learned with anyone who'll listen.
That's great. That's awesome. And what's the name of your book, your best-selling book, so that people can look that up as well?
Oh, thank you. The Unshakable Woman.
The Unshakable Woman. Okay, great. By Dr. Debi Silber. So awesome. We're going to wrap things up here. Dr. Debi, you've been awesome. Thank you so much for your wisdom and knowledge. We're going to put all the links for everything that Dr. Debi has going on, whether you want to take the quiz, want to work with her, book, whatever, so that you guys can start to overcome your betrayals that you've had in your life and start to move forward in that healing process. So Dr. Debi, thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for the work you do.
Thanks for listening, and we hope you enjoyed today's episode. Please help more people in reaching their fullest potential, and rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast. For show notes and other free resources we mentioned today, go to newedgewellness.com.